Well, here's another part to the video series on the Messiah and the Turah, an examination of the relevance and application of Turah to all believers. We're going to get into a little bit of discussion here on the Messiah and the Pharisees, Sadducees, the religious leaders of Yahusha's day. Once it is understood that Yahusha affirmed the Turah and it is continuing validation, is continuing validity till all is fulfilled, and as long as Shamayim and Eretz remain, we can then begin to see that all of his teachings were in absolute agreement with Turah. The reason that he made this proclamation was because the religious leaders had added to and taken away from the Turah through their takanot and their mahasim. Yahusha came to restore the Turah to the people, and part of this mission involved confronting the self-imposed authority of the religious leaders of his day, the Pharisees and Sadducees. And it was more than just two sects for the Pharisees and Sadducees. It was many sects more than that. But that's for another day and another teaching. The Pharisees believed that they had the authority to interpret the Turah and to instruct people how to obey the Turah. Yahusha came to challenge that authority. He did. He challenged that authority majorly. And this was the underlying controversy concerning most, if not all, of their confrontations. At times we read about the Messiah doing some rather peculiar things, which do not necessarily make sense because we do not always understand the underlying conflict. As part of his ministry, he confronted the religious leadership and intentionally violated their man-made laws, Talmud. By doing so, he was knocking down the fence that they had built around the Turah. For instance, his first recorded miracle of turning water into wine was a direct affirmation to the tradition concerning ceremonial purification water. For those familiar with the mikvah, it is clear why people would have large quantities of water for ritual immersions in their own homes, although it is questionable whether an immersion pool in a home actually qualifies as living water. Since most people use liquid containers to store either wine or water, it would have been important to thoroughly wash the containers and remove any remnant of wine if they were going to hold ritual purified water. According to tradition, this water was not to have any vinegar, taste, or evidence of wine, otherwise it would not be considered pure. By using these designed water jugs, which were filled with water that was then turned into wine, Yahusha was sending a powerful message concerning their customs. Yohanan 2:6. On another occasion, using saliva, Yahusha made clay and placed it into the man's eyes to heal, which was in direct contradiction to man-made laws regarding what could be done on the Sabbath. According to tradition, it was a violation to make anything on the Sabbath, and believe it or not, it was prohibited to put saliva in a person's eyes to heal them on the Sabbath. There were also those who considered it a violation to heal on the Sabbath. Therefore, in this one instance, he violated 3 of the man-made laws, but none of the Turah commandments. Yohanan 9:1. Yahusha provided another wonderful example of breaking the laws of men when he healed a man with the withered hand on the Sabbath. Yahuah 12:9-13. According to the Pharisees, such conduct was not permitted on the Sabbath. This, of course, is absurd, because nowhere in Turah does it ever put any prohibition on healing, especially on the Sabbath. There are very few commandments concerning the Sabbath in the Turah, but the Pharisees had developed hundreds again in an apparent. It is apparent that Yahusha calculated his actions to challenge the authority of the Pharisees and the Sadducees and their Takanoah, and although he always observed the Turah. In fact, in another instance of healing, Yahusha specifically instructed the leper to obey the Turah after he had been healed. And it happened when he was in a certain city that, behold, a man who was full of leprosy saw Yahusha, and he fell on his face and implored him, saying, Master, if you are willing, you can make me clean. Then he put out his hand and touched him, saying, I am willing, be cleansed. Immediately the leprosy left him, and he charged him to tell no one, but go and show yourself to the priests and make an offering for your cleansing as a testimony to them, just as Moshe commanded. Luke 5:12 through 14. In this case, the man recognized he was diseased and unclean, just as we need to recognize that our transgressions make us unclean. He had belief that Yahusha could heal him, and in fact, Yahusha demonstrated that he was willing to heal him. The man was touched by Yahusha, and he was healed. The fact that Yahusha touched a leper was quite incredible, because generally people would avoid lepers as being demi. In fact, a leper was required to tear their clothes, shave their head, and cry out, unclean, unclean, so that people would not go near them. Yahuah 13:45 and 46. Instead of avoiding the leper, Yahusha touched him. What a wonderful demonstration of his love and compassion. He then instructed the man to obey the Turah concerning the healing of leprosy, which is found in Yahuah 4:1 through 32. This particular mitzvot is very detailed, and I suspect was not done very often, if ever. Notice that Yahusha instructed a man to obey Turah as a testimony to them, meaning the Sadducees, Pharisees, religious leaders of the day. This is often true without our obedience to Turah. It is for our Baruch, but it is also testimony to others. Surely this must have amazed the religious leaders, the Sadducees and Pharisees, to see a man be healed from leprosy, for this was well understood and accepted sign of the Messiah. Yahusha clearly instructed people to obey the Turah, and I believe he often instructed his disciples and others to disobey the Takanoah intentionally, so that he could point out the error of the Pharisees and Sadducees and religious leaders of the day. A good example of this fact is when the disciples were walking through grain fields on the Sabbath, Luke 6:1 and 2. As they walked, they plucked heads of grain, rubbed them in their hands, ate them. Seeing this, some of the Pharisees and Sadducees asked Yahusha why they were doing something which was not permitted on the Sabbath. Again, you can search the Turah high and low, and you will not find a commandment prohibiting such conduct on the Sabbath, although it was prohibited by traditions of men. In another instance of healing, Yahusha told a paralyzed man waiting by the pool at the sheep gate called Bethzeddah, rise, take up your bed and walk. And immediately the man was made well, took up his bed and walked, and that day was the Sabbath. Oh, look at how many times the Sabbath is mentioned here in these scriptures that I'm quoting from, that I'm taking from. Sabbath is very important. it is probably one of the key appointed times for you to meet with Yahuah and worship him. See, Yahuah describes for us throughout the Turah how he wants us to worship him. But religion teaches people to worship the way they want to, not the way it is prescribed by Turah. So there is a disobedience going on. That's lawlessness. That is profoundly a man-made tradition made by the church itself. The church is loaded full of traditions of men. Now, for instance, I've got right here, I've got a King James Study Bible, and at the bottom of a lot of the pages you have these commentaries, okay, which are Takana and Ma'asi of the church. That is religious Talmud, man-made traditions and man-made, what should I say? That's how man interprets the scriptures. No, let the scriptures interpret the scriptures. That's how we should look at the scriptures, not in light of what man thinks it is, because there is a way that a man thinketh is right, but only leads to destruction. Okay? So stop listening to the man-made things. Begin to just look at the scriptures themselves, and you will begin to find that the Turah is taught throughout all the way. We are to walk according to Turah. Yahusha did, the disciples did, Talmudim, the Navi did, Dawood did, and a good portion of the patriarchs, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Jacob. They all walked according to Turah, though the Turah wasn't given till Mount Sinai, but they already were given the commands and how to walk according to Yahuah's will. Okay, all those before Mount Sinai were already knew what was required of them because Yahuah gave them instructions. The Yehudim therefore said to him who was cured, "It is the Shabbat Sabbath. It is not lawful for you to carry your bed." Yochanan 5, 8 through 10. The word bed likely refers to a mattress or a mat, and instead of focusing on the miraculous healing, the religious men criticized the man for carrying his mat, a violation of their, talking about man-made traditions again. So in my opinion, and this is I agree, but there is no other passage of scripture that more succinctly demonstrates the focus of Yahusha's teaching that on the issue of washing of the hands. First, read the account, and then I will elaborate a little bit on this. Then the scribes and the Pharisees, who were from Jerusalem, came to Yahusha, saying, "Why do your disciples transgress the tradition of the elders?" Oh, see, they said tradition. They said, "Why do your Talmudim disciples transgress the traditions of the elders?" Traditions. Did you see the word tradition is right in the text? "For they do not wash their hands when they eat bread." What? He answered and said to them, "Why do you also transgress the command of Elohim because of your traditions?" Oh, for Elohim commanded, saying, "Honor your father and your mother, and he who curses father and mother, let him be put to death." But you say, "Whoever says to his father and mother, whatever profit you might have received from me is a gift of Elohim, then he needed not honor his father or mother. Thus you have made the commandment of Elohim of no effect by your traditions." Hypocrites, well did Yeshayahu not predict about you, saying, "These people draw near to me with their mouth and honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me, and in vain they worship me, teaching the doctrines, the commands of men." Man-made traditions. Yahuah 15, 1 through 9. To fully understand what is going on in the text, it is helpful to understand the historical background as well as to go beyond the English text. As discussed, the Pharisees had developed their own religious traditions apart from Turah, one of them being commandment concerning the washing of hands. While many who read this passage believe that there is actually a commandment concerning the washing of hands in the Torah, they are wrong. This is really nothing more than a man-made tradition. You will not find this command anywhere in the Torah, regardless of the traditions exist to this day, known as Netili Yadim. The following is a sample liturgy commonly used by those in Judaism, Yahudiism, to fulfill their inherited takanot. This one is done before making bread. Wash the hands for challah. Make sure your hands are clean and dry. Grasp a washing cup with your right hand. Transfer the washing cup to your left hand. Make a loose fist on your right hand. Pour water over your right hand, enough to wet both the inside and the outside of your fist. Repeat. Transfer the washing cup to your right hand. Pour water on your left hand, enough to wet both the inside and the outside of your left fist. Repeat. Loosely cup your hand palms upward, as if to accept the purity. Raise your hands and recite, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha-elom asher kadusha nu bin mitzvad vadutz vitzti vanu al niti les yedumye. Blessed are you, Hashem, the Master, our God, source of our strength, ruler of the universe, who has made us holy, special to him through his commandments, and commanded us concerning washing of our hands. Dry your hands perfectly. While the Pharisees may not follow this exact procedure, this is the end result of takanot, man-made tradition. They were referencing, notice, that in their prayer they stated that Yahuah commanded us concerning washing our hands, which he did not. While it is certainly not a bad idea to wash your hands before eating, it is not a commandment. If you examine the Hebrew text of Netanyahu, the essence of the conflict is crystal clear. The Pharisees first confronted Yahusha by asking him, why do your disciples, Talmudim, transgress the takanot of antiquity by not washing their hands before eating? Amazingly, they considered it a transgression to disobey the takanot. Yahusha responded to them by asking, why do you transgress the words of Elohim because your takanot, your man-made traditions? Notice he calls it their takanot, which is absolutely correct. It is not in the Turah, and the takanot is not from Yahuah. It is from men. The same as what Christianity does by observing Christmas and Easter and Halloween and birthdays and New Year's Eve and Valentine's and Mother's Day and Father's Day and Thanksgiving and all these things. These are man-made traditions, usurping the authority of Turah through man-made traditions. Not observing Turah, but observing man-made traditions, takanot of men. Those things that man create and make up in their own mind and put them out there as being truth, when they're in fact not truth. They're not in Turah. They're not anywhere in scriptures. Christmas is not there. Easter is not there. Valentine's is not there. Halloween is not there. New Year's Eve is not there. Birthdays are not there. And if it's not in the scripture, then we shouldn't be doing it. Point blank, easy to understand. If you examine Hebrew text of Netanyahu, well, we already did that. Yahusha was giving the religious elite a lesson in the Turah. He was also rebuking them for placing their own traditions above the Turah and in fact replacing the Turah and making it of no effect. In other words, it's not been written on their hearts. They're not living it out. They're not being obedient unto Yahuah. They're not being obedient unto Yahusha, which Moshe was given, I think that there would be a Nabi that would come like unto him of the seed of the Hebrews that we must listen to. In other words, we must obey him. Well, the Christianity, Islam, and all these other religions do not obey him. They obey man-made traditions, takano of men, and doctrines of demons. A remarkable aspect of this passage is that Yahusha quotes the Nabi Yeshayahu during part of the rebuke, which goes to show that the conduct of the Pharisees was nothing new. It had been predicted hundreds of years in advance. I have provided just a small number of examples which certainly demonstrate the motivation behind much of Yahusha's conduct. His actions were often direct affront to the Takanot, man-made traditions of the religious leaders. And unless you understand the dynamics of what was going on, you will miss much of the flavor of his ministry. Armed with this insight, it is my hope that the reader can now study Messianic scriptures in new light and see Yahusha kept his word. He did not come to add or take away from the Torah, but to show us the fullness of the Torah, how to conduct ourselves according to Torah. Okay? The religious leaders had hidden the Torah from most people, and Yahusha came to reveal the Torah and expose the Pharisees. He was right in their face. In Netanyahu 23, 27, and 28, we read, as Mashiach proclaims, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are like whitewashed tombs, which indeed appear beautiful outwardly, but inside are full of dead man's bones and all uncleanness. Even so, you also outwardly appear righteous to men, but inside are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness." The word lawlessness comes from the Greek word anomos, which specifically means without Torah. Therefore, the very people who were supposed to be teaching Torah are accused of not having the Torah in them, though their Takano and Maasi they added to and took away from Turah. They placed heavy burdens upon men, which were the exact opposite of what Turah was intended to do. The Torah was given to redeem people who were former slaves. It was not intended to put them back into bondage, slavery. It was meant to free people, meant for a free people. This is why Yahusha specifically stated that his yoke, which is the Torah, is light and is easy. Netanyahu 11:30. One of the reasons why the Pharisees sought to kill Yahusha was because he challenged their authority, and the issue of authority continued after the death and resurrection of Mashiach, and eventually permeated the assembly of believers. Shaul even felt the need to clarify the matter of authority when he addressed the Corinthian assembly. But I want you to know that the head of every man is Mashiach, and the head of the woman is man, and the head of Messiah is Yahuah. 1 Corinthians 11:3. Notice that there are no popes, bishops, rabbis, priests, pastors, or elders mentioned here. The family unit is the most important structure created by Yahuah, and Ruach authority flows from Elohim through the family unit. Sadly, religious obligorts continue to place themselves between men and Yahuah and between husband and their wives and children. It seems that almost every religious system has its own hierarchy and power structure. The fair places the mass, also known as the laity, at the bottom of the power pyramid. This is where you get the term Nikolaitine. Two Greek root words, Niko and Leos, are brought together to form Nikolaitine. Niko means to conquer or bind, while Leos means the common people. This notion of conquering or ruling over the common people is what Yahusha called the doctrine of Nicolaitans, and it is the only thing that I am aware of that he said he hated. Revelation 2:6 and 2:15. Rabbinic Judaism spawned from Phariseeism and continues to teach that the rabbis have the authority to interpret Turah. I am dismayed by the fact that there are many in the modern Messianic movement who claim to follow Yahusha, but at the same time subscribe to this teaching. As a result, they are placing themselves under a spiritual authority of religious system. Now, I use spiritual there because that is exactly what it is. Spirits residing over fallen messengers, those who transgressed Yahuah's law of religious system, which not only denies the fact that Yahusha was Messiah, but also has a history of profaning the name and ministry of Yahusha, and actively works against believers, though the work of those called anti-missionaries. Now, this is the thing. You don't have to just deny his name itself personally, but you deny his teachings, his way of teaching us how to walk according to Turah. That's denying Messiah. That's also denying the Father. If you deny the Son, you deny the Father. If you deny the Father, you deny the Son. And you deny the Turah, you deny both of them. In other words, if you're not walking according to the Turah itself, and I'm not saying that you have to walk every letter of it, okay? You have to walk according to what Yahusha taught us. He came to clear up and make it more clear for us to understand that the Torah is not really that difficult to follow. It is not. It is actually very simple, okay? Because it doesn't give you any elaborately extra rules. Now, the thing that we don't need to worry about anymore are the sacrifices of animals for the covering of sin, because Yahusha provided that final covering for sin by shedding his blood on the stake, being impaled on the stake, not the cross. Make myself clear here. He was not crucified on a sun symbol, the cross, the letter Tau of Tammuz's name, another sun deity born on December 25th, along with Nimrod, born on December 25th, Zeus, born on December 25th, Ra, born on December 25th. All of these pagan deities were born on December 25th. Jesus, born on December 25th. You can lump him in with all those pagan deities because he is a pagan deity. He is not the true Mashiach, as Christianity would want to believe. You're believing a lie because you're following the image of the beast. You got pictures of him everywhere. They've got statues of him. They've got crucifixes with him on it, etc., etc. That's the image of the beast. And the RCC makes him speak and live as if he really was a person. When in fact, and the fact is that the name Jesus did not come to be a name till the 1628 KJV, a corrupt copy of scriptures with many other pagan names of pagan deities in it. Thus forth, making those who believe in the KJV as being the authoritative word, no, it's not. This is a corrupt, satanic writing. And besides, it's not the King James, it's the King Imus. There was no J when King Imus was born. Okay, let's now go further into this. Yahusha said, "For I have not spoken on my own authority, but the Father who sent me gave me a command what I should say and what I should speak. And I know that his command is everlasting life. Therefore, what I speak, just as the Father has told me, so I speak." Yahuah 12:49 and 50. It is clear that Yahusha speaks is from the Father, Yahuah. And he says that his command is everlasting life. He is the head of every man, not the Pope or the priest or the pastor, nor the Pharisees, nor the Sadducees, successors, the rabbis. That is the bottom of the line on religious authority. Interestingly, Yahusha seems to contradict this fact by instructing his followers to obey the Pharisees in one passage found in Good News, according to Netanyahu. So what do we make of this following statement attributed to Yahusha from the New King's translation? "The scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. Therefore, whatever they tell you to observe, that observe and do, but do not do according to their works, for they say and do not do. For they bind heavy burdens hard to bear and lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers." Netanyahu 23:2-5. This version seems to conflict with other teachings of Yahusha when he constantly corrects the scribes and Pharisees and challenges their authority. In this passage, he seems to be telling people to follow the scribes and Pharisees by doing what they tell people to do, but not follow their example on how they act. If this was actually what he was teaching, then he would indeed be contradicting himself, and the reason for this confusion is because most modern translations mistranslate this passage. A proper rendering of the passage should read as follows: "The scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. Therefore, whatever Moses, tells you to observe, that observe and do. But do not do according to their works, for they say and do not. For they bind heavy burdens, hard to bear, and they lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers. But all their works they do to be seen by men. They widen their garments and enlarge their tzitzis, their tassels that hang." This should be a tzitzi, a tassel here. Let's see if you can see that. That's a tassel. This hangs on the corners of the garments. Okay. "They love the best places at the feast, the best seats in the synagogues, greetings in the marketplace, and to be called by men rabbi." Rabbi does not mean teacher. It means great one. That is a misinterpretation to say that it means teacher. It means great one. They want to be called great ones. Netanyahu 23:2-8. This passage is translated from the Aramaic and Hebrew text of Netanyahu and clearly sets forth the intention of Yahusha. The seat of Moshe is a chair found in some ancient synagogues, and it is believed that this would be the place where the person would sit to read the Turah, or where the Turah scroll would be placed when not in use. The meaning of the phrase, "the scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moshe's seat," is not absolutely clear. It could be both literal and metaphorical. Some believe that Yahusha was recognizing their authority, but it could simply mean that they were the ones who kept charge of the Turah scrolls, which were quite rare and valuable. One thing that is clear is the fact that Yahusha was telling people to do what Moshe said. Not the Pharisee, not what the Pharisees do. In other words, what Moshe said and what the Pharisees did was not always the same. Therefore, defer to Moshe and do what he instructed. Follow Turah. There we go again. He's back into the Turah thing again. He's telling us about the Turah. He's not telling us about the religious sects and walk according to their man-made traditions. He's telling us to walk according to Moshe, the Turah. Yahusha made an interesting comment, which is often overlooked. He stated in verse 5, but their works they do to be seen by men. And what does Yahusha tell us in other places? Not to go toot your horn when you're going to do something. Okay, I'm just giving a more of a modern twist to it for you. In other words, don't go before men, oh, I'm going to give this money for this. No, you don't need to do that. Do it in the closet. Let Yahuah see it. He will reward you openly later down the road. But their works, they do to be seen by men. They made broad their garments, made them bigger, and enlarged the tzitzis, made them longer. Other mantles, which is supposed to be on the corner of the garments. And that reminds me of something right here. A person said, well, he doesn't have wings. No, see, they're not understanding this whole passage. And it says the Son of Righteousness, S-U-N. No, and what I found out, really, it's not S-U-N there. It's actually S-O-N of righteousness. And he has healing in his wings. Healing in his tzitzis on the corners of his garments. That's like you go to the woman who had the issue of blood. What did he grab? She grabbed a hold of his tzitzit. What happened? She was healed that moment, that instant. Okay? The tzitzit is worn in order to remind us of the commands of Yahuah. That's why we wear the tzitzit. It's a reminder. That's all it is. It's not something that it does anything special. It's just there as a reminder to obey the Turah, his commands. It's pretty simple, cut and dry. Okay? This statement will seem quite foreign for anyone unfamiliar with commandments concerning the Tefillin and the tzitzit. Tefillin, Tefillin, also called phylacteries, were worn to fulfill the commandment found in Shemot 13:9, Devarim 8:6-8, as well as Devarim 8:11-18, which provide direction concerning the instruction to bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. The Pharisees insisted on wearing modest, worn large garments that can show off, basically. So, oh, I'm more pious than you. I'm better than you because you can see I'm following all the commands. But you know what? Inside they weren't. Their heart was so far from you, it was funny. Likewise, the tzitzit, the tassel, fringe, often called tassels or fringes, are commanded in Turah in two separate instances. Devarim 22:12, Yahuah command, make tzitzis on the four corners of the garment with which you cover yourself. According to Bemidbar, Numbers 15:37-41, Yahuah spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Yasharel, and you shall say to them, make tzitzit on the corners of their garments throughout their generations, and to put a blue cord in the tzitzit of the corners, and it shall be for you a tzitzit, and you shall see it, and shall remember all the commands of Yahuah, and shall do them, and not search after your own heart and your own eyes, after which you went whoring, so that you remember and shall do all my commands, and be set apart unto Yahuah Elohim. I am Yahuah, your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, Egypt, you can say, that brought you out of sin, bondage. Okay? To be your Elohim, I am Yahuah, your Elohim. They did not just wear simple tefillin, they wore very large ones. They did not just wear tzitzis, they wore very long tzitzis, as if the size of their tefillin and their tzitzis demonstrated their degree of piousness. Their obedience became a show and was mere pageantry, which was not the result intended by the very commands which they were supposed to be obeying. The tzitzit and the tefillin are intended to remind us of the commands so that we walk in obedience, but the Pharisees were turning these reminders into religious badges, which was a complete contradiction with their intended purpose. Their hearts were not right. Their intentions were misplaced. They pointed here is that Yahusha was not criticizing the fact that they obeyed Turah, but rather the manner in which they obeyed it. Clearly, Yahusha himself obeyed the commandments, and we can see an incredible fulfillment of what the Nabim said in and through his Turah observance. A Naba in Tanakh speaks of Messiah as follows: the Son of righteousness shall arise with healing in his wings. Malachi 4:2, New King James Version. These wings are kanaf in Hebrew and refer to the edge of the garment, which is the tzitzit. We read in the Good News according to Luke, now a woman having a flow of blood. Now I already spoke of this, and I'm just going to read it fully through. Now a woman having a flow of blood for 12 years, who had spent all her livelihood on physicians and could not be healed by any, come from behind and touched the border of his garment, and immediately her flow of blood stopped. Luke 8:43 and 44. That's New King James Version. I don't like I said, I don't like the King James. I don't like the New King James. I don't like the NIV. I don't like these horrible renderings of Scripture because they don't make things clear. The Greek word used to describe a border, kesefad, which means fringe or tassel. In other words, if they would have actually, in other words, she grabbed his tzitzit, which he was wearing, in obedience to Turah, and he came with healing in his tzitzit, just as was foretold by the Nabim Malachi. Also in Netanyahu 14:35 and 36 we read, and when the men of the place Genishur recognized him, they sent out into all the surrounding country and brought to him all who were sick and begged him to let them only touch the tzitzit of his garment, and as many as touched it were completely healed. Well, there's another instance of it. See, there's healing in the tzitzit. When you obey Turah, healing comes. When you walk according to Turah, healing comes. Deliverance comes. Salvation will come. You will receive that reward of walking in truth and Ruah. You cannot worship Yahuah without being in Ruah and truth. Okay, you are not born again as some may claim. You're not saved yet. You're working out your salvation in this lifetime. Okay? You're not incorruptible and you're not immortal yet. You're not in the Ruach body. You're still in the fleshy body yet. That's why Shaul, he pointed out and said, deliver me from this body of sin. Okay? You're still able to sin, yes? Yes. You're still able to be tempted. in this, as long as you're in this fleshly body. Yes. Okay? So how can you say that you're born again or even saved yet? You're not. You're working it out. You're learning to walk according to the truth, according to Turah. Truth is a word synonymous with Turah. Light is a word synonymous with Turah. Okay? These all equate to the same thing. Love is also a word that equals Turah. Okay? These are just 3 examples of words that are mentioned throughout most scripture. Dawood even says, he says, your word is a light unto my path and a lamp unto my feet. Light, lamp. There it is again. What is wineskin? You're the wineskin. You put in wine or Turah. When you put Turah in, you need to have a new wineskin. That's why you need to be renewed in the mind to think the thoughts of Yahusha, to walk according to Turah, to obey Yahuah, and to be grafted into Yasharel, to walk in the ways of the covenant, renewed covenant. See, covenants are stacked. Abraham was given a covenant. Then Yitzhak was given the same covenant stacked upon the covenant of Abraham. Jacob was given the same covenant stacked upon the other covenants. Noah was a covenant. Okay, was given. It was all these covenants are stacked upon each other. They're just nothing more than the same covenant renewed, because people have broken it in the past, so it has to be renewed. Yahusha came to renew the covenant. Not new. There's nothing new under the sun. Thus saith Yahuah. Okay? You become a new creation because of the indwelling of the Ruach and the writing of the Turah upon your heart and being circumcised in the heart to walk according to Turah by the favor of Yahuah through the blood of Yahusha, which cleanses you of all unrighteousness. Now, turn and repent and walk in righteousness. Walk according to Turah. Do not do as the religious leaders do. Stop listening to pastors and preachers and the Sadducees and the Pharisees and the rabbis and the popes and the bishops. Stop listening to them people. They're not teaching you the truth. They're lying to you. Why? So they can line their pockets with your money, stealing it from you, when in fact tithe is not mentioned anywhere in the Brit Arsha, the renewed covenant writings, the writings of the Talmudim, the disciples of Yahusha. Church, you don't have to tithe. No, that's not how it works. And if you're going to tithe, you better bring some sheep, some goats, some grains, wine, not money. There's nowhere mentioned in anywhere in Scripture that you're to bring money. Nowhere. And stop worshiping money. Money ain't going to get you very much. It's going to get you a lot of unhappiness later down the road. Okay, money does not make anyone happy. The love of money is the root of evil, because it brings about greed, corruption. Also, in Netanyahu 14:35-6, we read, and when the men of that place, well, we read that already. We see in these passages not only a beautiful fulfillment of the Nabim, but also an example of the Turah observance of Yahusha, which has been obscured due to translation inconsistencies and ignorance on the part of the translators. By grabbing hold of the Tzitzi, which represented the commandments, the terms of the covenant, people were shown that healing and baruching came through the Turah, which is what Mashiach came to teach and fill up, to give meaning to. And that right there would be the end of that portion of teaching. And when we come back to the next video, we're going to go into the teaching. Messiah teaches Turah. Amen. In the name of Yahuah, our Elohim, And in the name of Yahusha Mashiach, our only Messiah, I give praise, esteem, splendor, honor to Yahuah, our Elohim, and may you be Barucha in this day, and may this teaching Barucha you, and may the Ruach reach out to those who are still in darkness and living according to religion and not according to Turah. I give the praise to Yahuah, our Elohim. May this teaching be a baruch to you. May it also help open your eyes to the truth of what Mashiach Yahusha really taught. Not what the religion is teaching those who go on the day of the worship of the sun, the first day of the week. But go to listen or have a home group and read the Turah. Learn the Turah, which is the foundation. The Turah is the foundation of everything else that is written after it. The first 5 books that were given to Moshe at Mount Sinai and further on as they were in the wilderness is the total all-out foundation. That is the living word that became flesh. Yahusha is the living embodiment of the Turah. He taught it, he preached it, and he came against man-made traditions, the same as we should be coming against Christmas and Easter and all these other man-made traditions that are in Christianity today. Islam is guilty of man-made traditions. They also worship a big black rock in Mecca. Okay? Well, with that being said, and this being a wonderful day that Yahuah has given, let us be glad and rejoice that we have found the truth in Yahuah and Yahusha, our Mashiach, who came to set us free from the religious system of Babylon. The mystery Babylon is religion. That is mystery Babylon. It is not only a religious system, but it is an economic system and a political system. Okay? It's all linked and tied together. And Babylon, Christianity, Islam, and all religion is going to fall. They're divided against themselves. Islam has a couple divisions within themselves. Christianity has thousands of divisions. They're all divided. They're not in unity. They're not one together in truth. They walk in the lies of man-made traditions, takano and maasi of men, doctrines of demons. May Yahusha baruch you. May Yahuah shine his face upon you. May Yahuah come down and give you shalom. Amen.